talk about the beautiful business of milk today. Yeah. I got milk. Let's talk about milk. Oh yeah, baby, let's talk about the beautiful business of milk today.
This episode of Got Milk is sponsored by Shunya Agritech, the folks revolutionizing cattle nutrition with hydroponic green fodder. Visit their website at shunya.live for more details, or download the Shunya app from Play Store or App Store.
All right, so we're diving into something pretty complex today. Smallholder dairy farming in India.
Yeah.
Most people think milk, cows, easy.
Right.
But there's so much going on behind the scenes to get that milk to your fridge. Like, we've got this research study here, and it kind of blew my mind, honestly. I can't wait to, break it down with you.
Yeah. India is fascinating because they're the world's biggest milk producer.
Really?
But a lot of it comes from these small farms, sometimes just a handful of cows even.
Wow.
So you can imagine the challenges, right? Small herds, different breeds of cows all mixed up.
Yeah.
And whether that can be, all over the place.
It's like a puzzle.
It is.
A puzzle with 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
And this study is trying to put some of those pieces together.
Exactly.
It's called Genomic Evaluation of Milk Yield in a Smallholder Crossbred Dairy Production System in India.
Okay.
Published back in 2021. And they looked at data from over 8,000 cows across 6 states.
Wow, that's a lot of cows.
A lot of cows. And it's not just how much milk each cow is giving. It's like their genes, their whole family history.
That's right. They were trying to figure out how a cow's genes and the environment they're raised in, how that all impacts the amount of milk they produce.
Okay, hold on. Before we get too deep into the sciencey stuff.
Sure.
How do they even get data from 8,000 cows on all these different farms? That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It was a huge effort, for sure. They had really strict quality control to make sure all that data was accurate.
Yeah, I bet.
Because so many things can affect how much milk a cow produces, right? Like how many times a cow is given birth, what time of year it is, where the farm is, even, the practices on that particular farm.
Wow.
They had to account for all of that.
So it's not just about the cow, it's about the whole ecosystem they're in.
Exactly.
Wow. It really makes you think about all that goes into that carton of milk in your fridge.
Right.
But back to the genes for a second.
Yeah.
They actually looked at the DNA of over 3,800 of those cows.
That's right, over 3,800. To figure out the breed composition, how much of each cow's ancestry came from different breeds, like Holstein Friesian or Jersey.
Okay.
And from that, they could start to predict, the genetic potential for milk yield. Almost like looking into a crystal ball to see how much milk a cow is likely to give.
Oh, wow. So it's like a milk production fortune teller.
Sort of.
But, based on science, what I find really interesting is that they were able to separate what comes from the genes and what comes from the environment.
Yeah.
That seems incredibly difficult to do with so many different factors.
It is. That's where it's called the genomic relationship matrix comes in.
Okay.
It's a way of analyzing data that helps you see the genetic connections between animals.
Okay.
Even in small herds where maybe the record keeping isn't perfect. It helps to tease apart those influences, nature versus nurture, so to speak.
Oh.
So you can see which parts of milk production are due to the cow's genes and which are because of things like the weather or their food.
Gotcha. So we've got all this data, cow families, genes, environment. What did they actually find out? Anything surprising?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, one of the big findings was the link between a cow's breed and how much milk she produces.
Okay.
Especially in certain environments. They found that cows with more Holstein Friesian ancestry, they tended to give more milk.
Interesting.
Especially on those high production farms, places with good resources, good management.
So it's some cows are bred for those big lead farms.
Right.
And others might do better in a different setup.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really helpful for farmers. If you know what kind of cow thrives in your environment, you can make better decisions about breeding.
Makes sense.
It's all about working with nature, not against it.
Totally.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how much farmers have to think about. It's not just having cows. It's understanding their genes and how that all works with the environment.
It's complex.
Speaking of environment, I remember something about lactation curves being different in different places.
Oh, yeah, the lactation curves.
What was that all about?
So lactation curves, they basically show how a cow's milk production changes over time.
Okay.
Some cows are like sprinters, lots of milk early on. Others are more like marathon runners, steady production over time.
Gotcha.
And what they found was in high production environments, those curves were really clear and predictable.
Okay.
But in like medium or low production places, it got a little fuzzy.
Fuzzy lactation curves.
Yeah.
What does that even mean for a farmer?
Well, it means those predictable patterns, they weren't so consistent when conditions weren't ideal.
Right.
So some breeds might be more adaptable, to different levels of management, different resources.
So like some cows need that 5-star treatment to do their best.
Right.
And others can handle a bit more roughing it. Yeah, exactly. So if you're a farmer dealing with like tough conditions, limited resources, unpredictable weather, choosing those adaptable breeds is super important.
It is.
You need a cow that can roll with the punches.
Absolutely.
But there's still that question of like how much is genetics and how much is environment. Didn't they talk about heritability?
They did. Heritability is basically a way to measure how much of a trait, like milk yield, is influenced by genetics versus, the environment.
Okay.
Think of it like this. If heritability is high, genes play a bigger role. If it's low, the environment has more influence.
Gotcha. So what did they find for milk yield? Was it mostly genes or mostly environment?
They found heritability estimates for milk yield ranging from like 0.193 to 0.250.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So that means genetics play a moderate role.
Okay.
Not the only factor, but definitely something farmers can select for.
So you shouldn't just focus on breeding. Management practices matter too.
For sure.
It's about finding that balance.
Right.
But I have to admit, the part that really blew my mind was the whole genomic predictions thing.
Yeah, the futuristic stuff.
It's crazy to think we can look at a cow's DNA and get an idea of how much milk she'll produce.
It is pretty amazing.
Wait, so you're saying we can predict how much milk a calf will give just from its genes?
Yeah.
That sounds like science fiction.
It kind of is. And the researchers, they actually validated how accurate these predictions are.
Really?
Yeah, it can be a really valuable tool for farmers. Imagine being able to choose the best milk producers even before they have their first calf.
That's incredible, like having a cheat sheet for building a high-performing herd.
Exactly.
This research is opening up so many possibilities. But I'm curious, where do we go from here? What are the next steps?
That's a great question. This study focused on milk yield, but there's so much more to a successful dairy farm, like disease resistance, heat tolerance, even the quality of the milk.
Yeah, that's true.
Those are all areas where more research could make a big difference for farmers.
It's like we're just starting to understand all the things we can learn about cows.
Right.
And how to help them, really.
Yeah.
But how do we take these research findings and actually make changes on farms?
One really exciting thing is that there are breeding programs specifically for smallholder systems.
So instead of using like generic breeding programs,
Right.
there are ones that are tailored to those smaller farms.
Exactly. They're using everything we've been talking about. Genetic data, environmental factors, what the farmer wants to achieve.
Wow.
To help them choose the best breeding strategies.
That's cool, like matchmaking for cows.
Yeah. And it's not just about finding the best bull for each cow. It's about getting access to better genetics, even if you don't have a lot of money.
That's great. So these small farms can really benefit from all this genetic research.
Absolutely. And there's also this move towards precision management, using data and technology to make decisions about each individual cow.
So instead of treating the whole herd the same way, you can adjust things based on each cow.
Yeah, exactly. Like personalized health care for cows.
Wow. By tracking things like how much milk they're giving, how active they are, even their eating habits.
Right. You can get a really good picture of each cow's health.
It's like a Fitbit for cows.
Yeah.
Constantly monitoring them. But, I mean, that takes a lot of technology.
It does.
Is that even realistic for small farms?
Well, that's the cool thing. It's becoming way more accessible because of, smartphones and things like that.
Okay.
Farmers can use their phones to track all this data, get alerts if something's wrong.
That's amazing.
It really is.
So it's all about giving farmers the tools and information they need to make good decisions.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, whether it's breeding or spotting a health issue early on.
Right.
But it's not just about technology. We also need to make sure farmers know how to use these tools, how to understand the data.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about education and training.
So it's a team effort. Scientists, advisors, and the farmers all working together.
Exactly, connecting the research with what's happening on the farm.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. I honestly had no idea how much was going on in the world of smallholder dairy farming.
It's a really dynamic field.
There's so much happening. It's really exciting.
It is. We're seeing this blend of science, technology, and human ingenuity that could really change things.
Yeah, for millions of farmers, it's not just about making more milk. It's about making the whole system more sustainable.
Absolutely.
And more fair for everyone. It's really inspiring to see. So as we wrap up, what's one thing you'd want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the main thing is smallholder dairy farming is complex. It's changing fast, and there's a lot of opportunity. If we embrace innovation, work together, and use data to make decisions, these small farms can not only survive, they can thrive. And that makes the whole food system better for everyone.
Absolutely. It's been great talking to you.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
I got milk.